Mr. President, I rise to speak tonight about the Minors Protection Act. And first of all, I want to commend and salute the work that's been done in this chamber. I'll especially highlight the senators on the Democratic side have been working. I know this won't cover everyone, but I want to thank Senator Manchin, the senior senator from the state of West Virginia, Senator Brown from Ohio, and Senator Warner from Virginia, and others, including the Democratic leadership, for working on this. And I know we have bipartisan support on this issue, and I want to thank our Republican colleagues who have worked on this. Unfortunately, we're told, and this is just today, we're told that in the negotiations and the back and forth on the continuing resolution, which we should be voting on this week, we're told that Majority Leader McConnell is not going to include the Minors Protection Act in the continuing resolution. That is very bad news, especially when we consider how we arrived at this point in terms of bipartisan support. I'll get to that in a moment. Instead, apparently, the proposal, or I guess at this point it might be beyond a proposal because it might be in a draft of the continuing resolution. But be that as it may, what's been proposed is a 4 months of health care for minors and their families instead of a lifetime guarantee. That is, in a word, unacceptable. And I won't dwell on that because I want to get to the rest of our arguments on why this is a proposal that we cannot accept. A long time ago, before the turn of the last century, the great novelist Stephen Crane, who's known mostly for The Red Badge of Courage, a great novel, and who died at the age of 28 or 29. But prior to his death, in addition to all that he wrote in a great novel, he wrote about, for McClure's magazine, an essay about a coal mine near my hometown of Scranton, Lackawanna County. I come from a county that had what they used to call hard coal, anthracite coal, and it heated homes across the nation and across the world for not just years, but generations. Stephen Crane described how dangerous it was to work in a coal mine. He did it with such beauty and such skill, but there were so many horrible images. I, of course, won't read the entire essay. But at one point, he described the inside of a coal mine as a place of, quote, inscrutable darkness, a soundless place of tangible loneliness, unquote. And then he described all the ways a miner could die in the mines. So that was the 1890s. And of course, coal mining today is safer, but still very, very dangerous. But no matter what the danger level, no matter what the circumstances of today, we owe these miners their health care and their pensions, and we owe their families. So what they don't want to hear and what we should not engage in is just the usual horse trading and kind of back and forth of Washington. They deserve the Minors Protection Act. It's not some theory, it's not some idea, it's legislation that was introduced, debated, and then voted on by the Finance Committee. 18-8, a bipartisan vote, in a place that can't agree sometimes on the time of day, let alone something as substantive and as important as health care and pension benefits for those who earn them. This isn't some extra thing we're given, not some gift we're giving. They earned it. In many cases, not just for years, but for decades, they earned this, okay? So we owe them this. This country owes them this. This chamber owes this to these miners. It was a promise a long time ago in the late 1940s. So these miners kept their promise. They went to work every day, year after year and decade after decade, and their families depended upon that promise. Some of them served in wars, including Vietnam, for example, just one example. Served in Vietnam and then worked in the mines again and worked and worked and worked. So they kept their promise. They kept their promise to their family, they kept their promise to their country, and they kept their promise to their company. And yet here we are once again, and the only ones left out are the miners. The companies will figure out a way to do okay. The country will move forward. The Senate will be just fine. But once again, we stand at the precipice or at the threshold of a new time period. People wanting to get out of here for the holidays. And yet coal miners are not asking us to do anything other than keep a promise. So we should keep our promise. And the Republican majority leader should keep that promise. It's outrageous that anyone would think it's appropriate to propose temporarily saving benefits when in practice, these recipients would be notified almost simultaneously that they're both eligible for benefits temporarily and that their benefits will terminate. That's not just wrong, that's an insult. It's an insult to them and to their families. Just imagine the stress of this. We can't imagine it. I'll answer my own question. We cannot imagine it. Probably no one in this building can imagine the stress on these individuals and their families. So it's completely unnecessary. Let me highlight, because I know we're limited on time tonight, some of the letters, or just highlight portions of letters that I've received. I know the senator from West Virginia has received even more because of his great advocacy and his work and the substantial impact that the mining industry has had on his state and the great work that was done by miners to this day. Here's a letter from and I won't use full names to protect people in case we haven't gotten their permission. This letter is from Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania. And I'll just limit it to a son talking about his mom. He said, "I'm writing to you from my mother, asking us to vote on this bill." He tells in the letter that his mom is a widow. And he said, quote, "She now lives on a fixed income. Her life depends on this passing," meaning the bill passing. "She has cancer and will need surgery. Her life depends on this bill passing." Okay? This isn't just another bill about some far-off issue. So that's a son writing to us from Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, about his mom. Here's another letter from a son writing about both his parents, and I'll just provide an excerpt. He writes, "It would be very comforting to know that his parents could continue their current UMWA benefits until they turn 65. He's worried about the fact that two parents are going to turn 65 in 2017, and he wants to make sure that they're protected. The third and last letter that I'll just read an excerpt from, is from a miner himself, from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a town I know pretty well, Cambria County. A lot of mining there over many years. He's talking about working in the mines for 21 years. 21 years. He said, and I quote, "When you make a promise, it should be kept," unquote. That's what a miner from Johnstown who worked in the mines 21 years reminds us of. Just what I said, a promise should be kept. He goes on to say, quote, "This insurance has gotten my wife and me through many health concerns, including breast cancer, which my wife still fights today," unquote. And then he goes on to talk about how this would dramatically change their access to doctors and medical care. So we're not talking about some budget number here. We're talking about a family telling us the life of their mother depends upon it, another family member whose mom has breast cancer, her life, or at least her health care at this point, depends upon it. So this isn't theory. This is legislation which passed the Finance Committee, as I said, 18-8. All we have to do is have the leader, majority leader, stand up and say, we're going to attach this to the continuing resolution, and have the House Speaker say the same, because they have control. That's all they have to do. Attach it to the continuing resolution, and we will finally kept our promise. So temporary relief is not only insufficient, it is an insult. Okay? It's not just insufficient, it's dead wrong. So no one here should be playing games with people's ability to pay for medication, paying for their oxygen. That shouldn't be the subject of games or horse trading, or pay to keep the heat on. So we delivered in both parties. We delivered to Majority Leader McConnell everything he asked for: committee consideration, debate, and a vote in the committee. And now it's come to the floor of the United States Senate. It's time for all of us to keep our promise to coal miners and to make the Miners Protection Act permanent law, and to keep our promise to those miners and their family. And I would yield the floor. And want to again commend and salute the senator from West Virginia as I yield the floor.